a couple of weeks. Okay, so if it's on there, you can go back and refer to it and reference yourselves to the video. The reason I'm pinning myself to it so that you guys don't pop up is we will have another class coming in. So at the moment I've got, there's not many people coming in from either class, I don't think, but I'm going to have my Loughton guys who are, a few of you are in, and a few of you guys from Chiswick. We're also going to have joining in about 5 minutes one of Kaylee's classes. This is because everybody's found Headsheets quite difficult since starting the Sassoon course. They're not easy to do, but when you get the hang of it, hopefully we'll start to understand it a little bit more once we've done a bit. And it will help you guys out a little bit further in the future. Okay. Are you guys all still watching Sassoon? Are you all still watching Sassoon? No? Yeah? Probably not. Julia's smile makes me think not. Why is not? Is it just got a little bit too much? Got a little bit boring? Anyone want to answer? Feel free. This is an interactive session. I'd imagine it's got a little bit much for you guys. Okay. So we're going to run through Headsheets and basically make sure we understand what they do, what they mean, and why we use them. Okay. So before we begin, at the end of the call, can I keep my Chiswick guys on, please? So when everybody else leaves, I want to keep you free. There's only 3 of you, I think, on at the moment. Yeah, so I want to keep you guys on if we can. And then I'm going to run through what's happening with your kits and things like that, okay? So I'm going to shuffle this thing. I've got my computer stand higher. All right, so I'm going to shove that forwards so we can see. So does anybody understand Headsheets? Or have you found it difficult to understand what they are for or what they're used for? Does anybody know? No? Yes? You? Yeah? So basically, Headsheets are a plan for our roadmap. Okay, so it's how we understand where we're going with hair and what we're actually going to be doing with hair in the future. I'm going to grab something, actually. Give me 1 sec. Right, sorry. So, this is my, I'm going to swivel this round a bit more so you can see what I'm doing. Hello, new people, whoever you guys are in Kaylee's group, so nice to see you all. My staff training folder from when I was doing my training. And everything that I have in here is basically Headsheets. So, see how thick this is, full of Headsheets. So, I've got descriptions and guides for every single haircut that I do in my time with our Sassoon. So if you can see, I've got my description on my Headsheet for every single haircut that I do. Okay. So this is basically just so that I can refer back to what I've done in my training. So if I ever think that I don't have something, I know what I'm doing, or I want to check over something, it's really good to refer back to. Okay. Also, it's a way to just keep control of your work and keep control of what you're actually doing. So these are the ones, I would have shown you these from last week. So this is similar to what we're going to be doing today. So we've basically got my roadmap set out on these 2 haircuts here. Okay, so these are showing, this is showing a longer layered haircut and this is showing a short graduation. I wish, I don't know where they are. So if you basically have a little bit of a difficulty running through where your Headsheet's going or where your work's going, draw out a Headsheet. The basic rule is if you can draw it, you can cut it. Okay, so if you can understand where your drawing's going to go and where your outline's going to fall and where your section's going to go throughout the whole haircut, you're going to be able to do your haircut fully and make sure you're on the right track. Okay, so.
Sorry, Rob, to interrupt. Can you just mute everybody because there's a lot of background noise and it's a bit fuzzy when you're talking.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll leave you unmuted though. All right, so if you jump in, by all means. All right. And also, if anybody has questions, do unmute yourselves. Okay. This is quite an interactive little session. I don't want it to just be me chatting away, and then if you guys don't understand something, then you're confused when you're doing your head sheets in your careers. Okay. So if you do have questions, just unmute yourselves and ask them. I've pinned myself, as I was saying to my group before, I've pinned myself onto the screen. So when we put this up online, you won't pop up and no one will see your personal information or your room or whatever. Okay, so it is as safe as we can possibly make it. And it won't be going out to everybody. It's basically going to be an unlisted video so that you can keep your security. So if we get cracking, so I don't know if you can really see, it's a bit far away, but I'm almost hugging the wall here. So if I move it a little bit closer, you'll be able to see my little key down the bottom. And this is really important for what you're going to be keeping track of your work. So I've basically gone for 5 colors. So my black, I'll read it out for you because you can't really see it, but my black is major sections. My green is cutting sections. My red is over direction and elevation arrows. My blue is expanded shape, and my yellow is cutting line and expected fall. Okay, I will explain all of this to you and what it actually means. I'm going to do another session on video that is exactly the same, but I'm going to blow these up a little bit bigger so that we can do it a little bit more inclusively. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is, if I show you some photos, I'm going to do a graduated bob. So a haircut like this, like that, and something like that. Okay, so I want to basically know how I'm doing my graduated bob via my my colors and my head sheets, but I also want to be able to know before I start cutting my graduated bob where my shape's going to go and where my technique's going to fall. Okay, so can you all see? Yeah, if you can't see, unmute yourselves and let me know. I'm as close as we can possibly.
Rob.
Cool.
Rob, how long is this call gonna be?
It's going to be as long as it needs.
So roughly, how long? I got somewhere to be at like 11:30.
It'll be done well before then, but this is your training day, so you do need to be training all day, or as long as for the 4.5 hours. Yeah, so it's the same as being in the academy. Okay. So, graduated bob. Major sections we're going to start with first of all, and this is just something that I put in to make sure that I know where my parting's going to fall and where my section down the back's going to fall, just to split the hair up. Okay, so I'm going to be working in this section first of all in this head sheet. Okay, so I basically want to make sure that I have my section down the back to the occipital bone. Okay, and then I want to have my sections coming behind the ears from my occipital bone. So that's quite a major section there. So it breaks the haircut up. So we part the hair down from working just in the back, and then we're going to move up the head. So if that was in green, that would be a cutting section. So it's not as important of a section to start off with. Okay. And then running this section from here, we need to put that up into this piece here. So I'm also going to have that coming into there and also into that back piece into there, and that's it with our sections. And we could probably put one down the center here just to have our center. Okay, so now I'm just going to mute Davey.
Hiya.
Oh, sorry, I just muted you. Hello. Hello.
Hiya, I'm going to put myself on mute because I'm just in the car, so you'll probably hear everything.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry, yeah, no worries at all. So now we are going to go with our green. So we go into our cutting sections. Now, everyone who's done a graduated bob before, I'd imagine it's quite a few of you. I'm not too sure about you Chiswick guys. I don't know how far in your training you are. So this is the way we work it in our level 3 work. So I'm making this inclusive level 2 and level 3, but it's the best way that I know how to work a graduated bob. So we start pivoting from our occipital bone. Okay, but we know that with our head sheets, we need to draw our sections in. So these are my first cutting lines. Okay, so anything in green is where we're going to start doing our cutting sections from. So we start in the center, and because we work in a triangular shape, we want everything to get longer from this first section. So now we're going to start pivoting and pulling our sections round like your orange segments, or what you would do with your uniform layer, for instance, as you're coming into the front. But we need to show now where we're pulling this hair to, and we need to show the work we're doing in terms of shape work. So that's where our red pen comes in and starts to work our over direction and our elevation arrows. So to show that we're now getting everything longer, every single section that we move over to the right hand side and the left hand side, we're going to put arrows back into that first piece. Does that make sense? So we're showing ourselves, when we look back at this in the future and think, how the hell did I do that, graduated Bob? We're now knowing that everything is coming back into each individual section that we've just cut, to ensure that gradually our length becomes longer and longer. Okay, so I know that all of you are doing your Sassoon course. It's basically showing you what you're doing with your haircut. And I know Kaylee especially talks incredibly about your roadmap for color and your roadmap for cutting when we start going into level 3, even in level 2. It's so important to be aware of your roadmap so that you don't get lost and confused as you're going in. Okay, then we work on our yellow. So where's our cutting line going to be, or our expected fall? If you understand your cuts, you can understand where your hair is going to fall. And a lot of people always say to me, like, how do you know where the hair is going to fall, or how can you feel comfortable with cutting hair or cutting somebody's hair off? And I say the same thing to the colorists when I'm working with those guys, is that how can you know what color your hair is going to turn out when you put the color on it? And I find that a little bit confusing, the same way people find this. But if you refer back to your fundamentals and really make sure you understand where your line's going to fall, you will never ever go wrong with something. I guarantee you it will always, 9 times out of 10, you can't really keep everybody happy, but most of the time it will always work. So I know if I cut my graduated bob, it's going to fall somewhere around about here, just because that's the guideline that I'm looking for. Hopefully you can see that yellow line. That's the area that I've agreed with my guest before we've started our haircut. So all in our consultation, we're chatting away. We know we want it to sit somewhere around about the bridge of her neck, and then we can control that line completely. Okay, and now all we do is move up. So where's my green? Again, in these 2 top sections in here, I'm just gonna mirror that in there and there. And I'm gonna run with my red pen to push that back and show my over direction in the top and show my over direction from the sides. So it's a case of where they're looking each way. It shows you from each profile piece that you're looking for, okay? And then we move up the head. So very simply now, we're just gonna push every single green line all the way up to the top, okay? And when we come into the sides in here, we show that our angles are facing down from back to front. So we've got diagonal sections from back to front, which is showing that we want the hair to push forward and push somewhere into this area of her face here. So if you guys are watching the videos that we do on YouTube, and when we start working together fully in level 3, if you guys go into it, and in our level 2s as well, you'll understand where directional sections fall and what that does for your haircut. So it starts to push hair, and we want to open up areas of her face that are beautiful and pull out areas of her face. So lip area, for instance. If someone's got an amazing jawline or amazing eye socket, for instance, you can do something in here to create that shape, but your sections create that form, okay? So with everything going into a directional section forwards, we know it's triangular shape because we're pulling back to the previous. Don't focus too much on shape-wise at the moment. And every single section here is now going to be over-directed down onto that heavy weight line. Okay, so we now show that with each section coming down onto our weight line. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? Good, I think so. If you can't see it, then unmute yourself. Good. And then in the second side, we're going to show the exact same thing again. So we're going to pull this one back, then this one back, and then this one back to here, okay? And what that's showing us is that everything is now being pulled back into that first weight line that we created. So we formed our shape pivoting, and then every single directional section forwards is pulled back onto that overall weight line. We know our outline sits in here, so that's our shape on the outline, but we now want to see what that outline does on the edge, or on the jawline. So our elevation is going to be in our expanded shape color, which I'll explain in a moment. But we know that with graduation, we're going to be tucking it in tight into the nape. Okay, so that's the sort of shape. Remember when we talk about 45 degrees? So a 45-degree angle, I don't want to focus on degrees at all in this, because there are ways around working 45 degrees in terms of thickness of hair and densities of hair and things like that. But there's your sort of shape. So we go tight in the nape and then create that length and expand our shape higher and higher as we come through to the front. Okay, and our cutting line we know is going to come from the bottom of our graduation, which is in here in the top of our neck, or the bridge of our neck, and it's going to run down into the front, and then we're going to have that nice shape and technique coming into the front. So hopefully you can see that yellow. I should choose a better color, but we now know that our cutting line and our expected fall is going to fall down, pointing on the jaw, and come higher into the base. So that's where we know our shape's going to go. Your expanded shape is basically something that if you poke your finger in a plug socket and your hair stands out an end like an electric shock, what are you going to see? Okay, and they may have spoke about this a little bit in Sassoon, and it's the way we used to visualize cutting hair. So I explain it as if you've got weight in somebody's hair and you start using your thinning scissors and you start using your texturizing techniques and your point cutting and things like that, you're taking weight out of hair. But there is a technical way to do it. And to do that, you have to find your corners. So your corners of the head are all built up on where the head rounds. Okay, so you're off your recession point, your crown area, and your two sections, where's the back? Your two sections down here in the back. Okay, so there's five corners in your head. But somewhere in there, if you've got a bulk of weight, it's going to be a corner. Okay, so I'm going to get another bit of paper. And actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to do it on that. It's probably easier if I do it on here. So if she shoves her finger in the plug and we've got a graduated bob, we know our section's getting shorter, it's getting longer. And because our point down here is so much longer than at the back, we know that point, if it stands up on end, is going to be up here somewhere. Okay, so then we draw that in, and then we know that's got a match here. But because we're over directing everything, each section coming forwards is over directing to the back, we know that's gradually building length into this side piece. Okay, so we know that this line here, or this hair in here around the crown, is getting longer and longer and longer. So our line's going to come up and meet to that point. Okay, so we're going to come round, and I've missed my line. So a bit untidy, but you get the drift. But now we start thinking of corner shapes. Okay, so say for instance her hair is really thick, and our outline here is really, we love that outline. That's quite a nice little length to fall down to. Okay, but it's too heavy. There's too much weight, so it's pulling all of our hair down. All we have to do there is just find a way to lop off that corner. Okay, and I guarantee that's going to give you a lot more softer shape. You can point cut that, you can texturize cut that, you can deep channel cut it, use your thinning scissors, use your razor, whatever you've learned in your level 2 and level 3, you can do. But if you locate where your corner is, you can create a much softer shape technically. And something that you can tell your client, oh, this is what I'm going to basically be doing. So if I find this corner here is what's creating that weight, I say it to my classes, like, say my name's Robert for the guys who don't know me. If I buggered somebody's hair up and they came into you and said, it's too heavy, what can you do? You work with your elevation to find your weight, and you find your corners, and then you can basically say, well, Rob's left this corner in there. What I'm going to do to fix this is just elevate this section higher, take away that corner, and it's going to form so much better for longer. That client's going to stay with you for a long, long time. Okay, because you've explained what you're doing, you've located my issue that I created, and you fixed it, and you gave them a plan and a process to go on to. Okay, so if I complete this side again in here, so there's my blue, we're going to come out to here and then tuck that shape down neatly into the bottom, show my elevation with another little arrow in there, and then I know that my length is coming down into here, and then move my arm out the way so you can see, hopefully you can see. And then our expanded shape is going to come high, and then round into there. Okay. And lastly, we can check our expanded shape down the bottom to really see how the length changes internally. So does anybody have any idea of what I'll be drawing in here in terms of an expanded shape? If anybody wants to unmute themselves and have a little go at guessing where we'd go with our expanded shape. So if we remember that our section in the middle is the shortest point and our section around the front is going to be our longest point, what sort of shape does anybody know what I would be drawing in here? Would it be circular? Would it be sort of concave, or would you go for more convex, or even to a point? Anybody have any ideas? Give you 5 seconds.
No, the way you showed right in the beginning, like with the highest point on top.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the round side. Yeah.
Perfect. Excellent. So our shortest point is going to be in here, and then we're going to come longer and longer, and then we're going to go into a point, sort of like a teardrop section. Yeah? Makes sense? Because our shortest point is down here, and then everything's getting longer and longer and longer into here. I don't think it really does on my drawing, but we'll gloss over that. It gets longer into this main point, which is our front piece. So all of our points are all the same. I don't know if you can see that top one there. All of our points are all the same. So as Yulia was saying, we're getting longer and longer as we go into the point. And then say we want to take some weight away. I'm just going to say to my client, well, okay, I'm just going to remove that slight corner there. Or I'm going to run and take that slight corner off there, or run and take that corner off there. And that makes it a much more rounded shape. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Silence is good. We are going to just finish this off with these two. Now, I don't know why this one's in it really, this one on the top, because you can't really see too much, but it is quite a nice little bird's eye view. And we're just going to remember, we're just pulling everything back. So I just run with 2 big sections in there. I don't show expanded shape on the sides because it's sort of non-existent. This top one I find is really important because you can start working your shape down from a front area. And we all know that guests, when they're looking at their hair, they see the front first. That's why fringes are so scary, I find, because that's what they're seeing. If you sod up somebody's fringe, that's what they see. You can't then show them the back and say, oh, but the back looks really good, because they don't walk down the road with their walk backwards down the road. So this is where we can basically just show yourself where you want your hair to fall. So say we wanted like a little curtain parting and then something down there. Okay, so it's just a nice way to show your shape and show your technique. All right, so that would be what I would say to go for with head sheets. Keep them, it looks quite difficult, but keep them as simple as you can. Have a key that you know is going to be your key for the rest of your careers. I've worked with this since I started at Sassoon, so this is my overall comfort zone with colours. I find the colours are so different that you can look at that and just think, right, I know where my expanded shape is. I know where my expected fall is going to be. My cutting sections are visual. I know my over direction arrows. Let's go and do the haircut. Okay. So instead of, there's always a point in salon where you're going to have an issue with a haircut, or you're going to find that you need a bit of advice on a haircut. And I know that's the same with colour. You think, oh, is this colour going to work? So you go and ask somebody. Sometimes there's not going to be somebody there to ask. And you can look back at one of these, it's not going to show you densities and things, but it could help, okay? So always keep your head sheets going, all right? My second one I'm going to do just quickly for you guys is something longer, so something like this. So a long layered haircut. It's very similar to this CBA, my shake that I did on the live video. This is the video that I forgot to record. So I drew out a head sheet so that people could hopefully understand where we went with the shape and where we went with the technique. But I'm not going to do that similar one. It's going to be something a little bit softer. So very simply, this is a very, very classic haircut. This is just going to be a square layer. So again, we've got the same key. I know what colours I'm going to do, and I always start with my major sections just to section my shape away. I just want to show you this one because we've got to work 2 sections in the back. We've got to show our line and we've got to show our layering. Okay, so I want to show you a nice way that you can basically log the 2 on the same head sheet. So I'm going to work from my crown to behind the ear and just section that area away, and my major sections are in. Now you can put that black one away. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to do my line. So where I want my overall line to fall. So I'm just going to work, as you all know, we just work horizontally, slightly diagonal facing forwards, because I do want my shape to fall a little bit longer into the front on this haircut. Okay, so everything forwards all the way. Then we look for our expected fall. So I want my length to be quite long down on the base. And similarly in this side here, I'm just going to draw something nice and long and then leave that shape in there. And everything comes down to that one point. So I personally just run a big red line through the middle. Okay, and that shows that my shape is going to be slightly over directed from front to back to create that slight length into the base. Okay, now we need to work on our layering. So I use my right hand side for the layers. So then you haven't got two head sheets knocking about and it doesn't get confusing. And we work vertically. Okay, so we work vertically and then into my right hand side of her face. And then we start to slightly angle our sections forwards just because we want to mirror our shape on our outline. Okay, and then we know our expected fall. What cut should we use? Should we use just a base? No, I'm not going to do a basic square layer actually. I'm going to use my elevation somewhere up here. Okay, and my reason for it, if you're using your uniform layer or your flat grad, which don't remember that name too much, it's all straight up to the top. You're going to create a corner. So remember how we were talking about corners in this side. Say you're bringing your line down to here and your layers up to here. In here, you're going to create a corner. Okay, because you're lifting this hair high, this hair low, and then you're going to have somewhere in the haircut where the corner is going to fall. So the way to counteract something like that is just lower your elevation in the back. Bring your elevation down into this point here. We're looking at this head, by the way. I'm not just running my pen around on the wall. If you're too high, where my pen finishes, you're going to have a corner. So just lower that down. Okay, and that's why your uniform layer works quite nicely in the back, because you can run that shape in and have a really nice rounded feel. So your expanded shape is similarly over to here where there's no corners knocking about at all in that back piece. The uniform layer has problems when you come around by the ear, which I will now explain, or I'll explain in a minute. So our elevation is going to be coming high. Okay, and then we're gonna draw our little arrow in there to make sure we're aware of where our over direction is going. Now, why the uniform layer has issues round by the ears. Down here is where your hair forms on the back. So you've got a lot of thickness around there. And I don't know if you'll be able to see on my head, if I spin this round a little bit, I probably won't be able to get in there, but I've got a big gap in between my hairline and my back of my ear. Okay, so there's a lot of clients who have no gap, and there's a lot of clients who have quite a big gap knocking around in there. Okay, so the bigger the gap, the more softness you're going to create, and the more of a hole you're going to create down here on your line. I don't know if you've ever worked a shape in where you've got your line really strong and then you get a big gap in here. And people say, oh, tap above the ear and that works really well. That does on a bob, it works okay. But when you're working length, nobody ever taps. And the problem is when you're starting to work your shape in your layering, the hair comes up and round the ear. So you're losing half of your density of hair from above the ear down to the back. That thickness is just lost around this front hairline. So you've got to do something to put that thickness back. And we basically do that by working all of these horizontal sections, over direct those back into this shape here, into where your elevation was created first of all. Okay, so every section keeps with that slightly more elevation, but it's just creating a much stronger feel down on this overall outline. Because you're pulling hair away from the danger area. Your danger zones for me, your crown area is a danger zone, your front hairline's a danger zone, and this area around the ears is such a difficult area. So for me, they're your crucial danger zones that you have to focus on. And pulling hair away from your danger zone creates a strength in that area. Okay, that's a really nice little tip that I learned once when I was at my wit's end with cutting bobs. I couldn't do them. And then I had to find a way to basically create it myself. And everybody teaching me would just say, oh, just cut it and see how it goes. But there is a technique behind control of line. And that is basically quite a nice little thing that I learned myself. So yeah, quite easy. And then when we look at our expanded shape, our shape is going to come out to here, and then we're going to hit that line, and then that shape's going to come into the front. So similar sort of feel as I start to run out of ink. Oh no, they're back. Lovely. Makes sense? And then if we're going to look at doing something shaping in the front, again, we could say this is too heavy. So what technique could I use, do we think, to do a little bit of shaping around the front and push the hair off the face a little bit and take off these corners? What technique do you guys know that I could use in here to soften that in? Anybody know? Couple more seconds. No? We're going to use some forward graduation. And now you're all going, oh yeah. See, if you think about it in a technical term, you can really start to understand what we can do. So forward graduation is just a corner removal, okay? So we want to get rid of that corner there. I'm going to use blue so you can see. We want to get rid of this corner here, and we want to get rid of this corner here. So just by using a bit of forward graduation to lop off that corner there, it creates a much softer process and a much softer feel. So when we start to look at this front piece here, instead of it becoming just a big, heavy, blocky line in the front, I don't know if you can see that, we cut that corner off and shape that frame around the face, okay? So can you see that? You can see that. So it just basically opens that area up a little bit. So forward graduation is corner removal, and it just softens the hair down a little bit. And then again, if we show our expanded shape from here, I always do it from the base of the neck really, just to make sure that you're aware of the length coming really quite long, because we know our length is long. And then we're going to run out of page, but it round layers in because we've used our uniform layer. And then this would extend up higher. I'm not going to draw it because I'm going to be hitting the wall. And I don't know if these will wash off. And then that shape comes down into the front piece, okay? So head sheets are primarily just to, oh dear. Head sheets are primarily just to give you an understanding of your work and an understanding of where you're going to be going with your shape, okay? So when you start looking for questions about what you can do with hair, or when you start getting to creative hair, you can start drawing a head sheet out, and it becomes an awful lot more clear to you what you're going to be doing. For example, I have this one that, again, from what we did last week. It looks quite creative. So I've got everything coming from below my danger zone in my crown. So I've got 5 sections across the top, which dots create no over direction. So I lifted everything off the base. So we can instantly see that that's a round layer in the top. They were disconnected, but I will show you the video, or give you the link to the video. So it instantly shows that on the top, it's just a simple round layer that is disconnected, but hey ho. Down here, my black section shows that I've got a really low recession line from my top horseshoe section. So even though this looks confusing, we already know that I've just round layered the top with a low horseshoe, okay? Then I've flat graduated this side piece, which we can see with our line in here, and then round graduated the back. And the same with the back, round graduation. The sides were exactly the same, both sides. And then my expanded shape shows us that my corners are completely gone because I've just worked a shape down that's quite round. So these look confusing, but they don't need to be. And that's why I say there's no real way of completely doing this. There's not one way of doing it. And with Sassoon, the way they've started doing their course is they'll give you a head sheet to draw, and you've got to try and draw it. And the problem is they'll then go and mark that, and they might say it's wrong, but it might knock your confidence. You've got to find your own head sheets that work for you. You've got to find your own keys that work. This is an overall plan of what we used to do when I was training. And it seems to work quite nicely, but it's just a case of getting yourself going and getting your roadmap sorted out. And once you do that, and once you understand haircuts, if you can draw them, you can cut them, okay? So that's it. Hopefully that was quite important, is it? Or interesting. Has anybody got any questions about it or anything that they don't understand? Because it is confusing. Anybody? No questions. Good. I think that's good anyway. Is that good, Kaylee, having no questions? It must be.
It was easy to understand. You've explained it all in detail, so.
Good. Excellent. So I will never, for my students personally, and I work a lot with Kaylee level 3, I will never ask really to mark your head sheet. I will ask to see them. It will be nice to put them up on the mirrors and things so you know where you're going, and then educators can have a little look and other people can come around and see what you're doing and see how your process is going without interrupting you, for instance, if you're with a guest or something. But I won't ever look to mark them because they're your personal head sheets. They're what you're looking for. I just would look to guide you into how I personally do them and see that whole expanded shape area is so, so important. So, yeah, I hope that helps. I know my guys in Loughton, you've been saying that the Sassoon course is getting a bit much. Keep going with it. It is good. Once you understand these, it gets a little bit easier. Kaylee and myself have put some videos up on YouTube as well, so do focus on those, have a little look at those as well. I'm going to post this on YouTube unlisted, so I'll send you all the link in so you know it's there, but don't share the video if possible. It is just for our viewing only. Okay? Sound all right? Fabulous. Can I keep my, I want to keep my guys on for today, so I want to keep my Loughtons and my Chiswicks
Stop
on.
the recording. Stop the recording.
Oh, stop the recording, yeah.
Stop.
How do I stop it? Oh, there you go.